Hello and welcome to the MetaStellar YouTube channel. My name is Sophie GORJANCE. I'm one of the fiction editors here at MetaStellar, and today I am lucky enough to be interviewing E. E. King, author of the nearly completed novel Gods and Monsters, which we have been serializing on the MetaStellar website for the past 10 months. Evie, hello, I'm so glad to talk to you again.
Thank you. It's so good to talk to you too.
This is our last interview in our series, sort of like short series of three interviews. And today we are going to start right in with our big news. Evie, do you want to share with everybody?
Yes, I do. Why not? So Gods and Monsters will finally be out after this 10-month long process, available for pre-order on December 31st. So just in not time for Christmas, uh, just in time for next Christmas, just in time for the new year. And then it will be available for actual purchase on January 21st. So if you want to get in right away, put in your pre-order copy, and that will make us all very happy. And you too, when you get the
And
book, we hope.
yes, the links for that will be below in the description. So please, everybody, check that out. It's actually a really beautiful copy. I don't have a physical copy yet, but the cover is going to be stunning. The interior has had some really beautiful work done to it. So I'm really excited for this personally. Great. So for the rest of our conversation, I would love to sort of hear about a sort of retrospective on this like very interesting, massive project that you've been undergoing. The publication process has been, as we just said, quite lengthy. Over 10 months, we have been serializing this chapter by chapter, both on our website and on YouTube and elsewhere. So I was wondering how that process has been going for you.
Well, it's great, but it's that whole, it takes a village. I mean, and this was more, when you publish a short story or even a novel in a more traditional way, there's back and forth with you and the editor, and maybe a designer or something jumps in. But really, maybe you work with a couple of editors or something, but this has been so many fingers in the pot, if you will. It's been great. I mean, you totally edited, not just like proofing, but saying like this needs to be explained or da da da, and made it a much better book, which is what an editor should do. Thank you very much. But then Maria, who is the head of MetaStellar basically, and spearheaded it, and Adriana, who formatted it, and other people in the editing process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Shout out to Emma and Michelle specifically.
Oh,
Yes,
yes, thank you.
excellent.
That's what my head, but red was, I was seeing their names in my head, and
Yeah.
my mouth was going, I'm going to pronounce it wrong. So you do. Uh, so yeah, really amazing work, all you guys, and thank you so much. We started out doing both the YouTube and the print, and then about halfway through, I guess I added Spotify just because I got feedback from certain people saying I'd love to listen, but I'm not going to listen on YouTube because you have to leave it open and blah blah blah. So that's been a good addition. And for all of you
Mhm.
creators out there, it's now made very easy to just upload to Spotify. And if you have a YouTube already, you can just do that easily. Yeah, it's been a really interesting process. There was only one episode, I think, where I made a mistake where I wasn't sure if I needed to re-record it, and I didn't. I figured it was okay. Because of the mistake, it sounds like a man is going up through a chimney, not a cat. But I was like,
Well,
well,
that's a fun Easter egg for people to go back and listen for.
yes.
Um,
This is just a real little side, like folktale thing. And
yeah.
it's, well, it could have been the man, sort of. I mean,
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, I'll leave it. But
There's already a lot of magic going on. Why not a Santa Claus episode as well?
right, Santa Claus in reverse, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. Wonderful. Yeah, so that actually segues us very neatly. If there was anything that you sort of like felt like you wanted to expound on a little bit, you mentioned in an email previously that you were very particular in your use of color in the book. So if there's anything like that that you wanted to tell our audience about, um, I would like you to tell me about it.
Well, you know what's interesting? I'm an artist. In fact, I painted the cover of this. We did a video of it, though sadly it's a video in real time. I later learned how to do them really fast, cooler to watch. But so I color is important to me. Um, and I didn't realize it, but in another novel, my next novel coming out, there's also a guy who, because of an accident, sees the world in black and white. And when color comes into his world, it's not the same as this novel at all, but it means something very particular. And the introduction of color into one of our characters' lives, it's each color means something. And
Mm.
and it's all divided at in the end when he can see it all as one is when he becomes too human to, whatever. We won't give it away any endings, will we?
We still have one chapter left to post. That's right. Can't spoil
Right.
it all.
Can't
Yeah.
spoil it all. Yeah, it's a one I think I can do it without a spoiler alert. When I wrote my very first draft of the book, and this book was a mess to write. I think I told you at one point, I took it apart, put it together, and it probably ended up like put together like I'd originally written it, but it's so many different stories. But I finished it and I had dealt with the ending, but I really hadn't dealt with the ending of our hero at all. What happens to
Oh.
him? And my first beta reader said something like, "Well, don't you have to tell us what happens to her?" And I'm like, "I forgot about that. Yeah, okay, okay, you do." So it's like, So yeah, so that's that. And then I always have a cat in my story, I think, based on my black cat Max.
Oh, beautiful. I love
Yeah.
a black cat. Um, as you were speaking just now, I think this is a thing from Stephen King's book on writing, where he says that he'll just like blather out a first draft basically, and then go back and as he's rereading, kind of discover the themes that he was working with, and sort of like tease those out a little bit. And in his second draft, he's actually like doing them on purpose, basically. I'm probably misremembering that, but it sounds like you had a sort of similar experience with taking your story apart after you had constructed it and sort of like seeing how the pieces fit together in a different way. Do you think that is accurate to your experience?
Yes, like I say, I write differently with each novel kind of thing. Though it's always a mess, but it's never as big a mess as this one was because, like I said, I just let it completely flow. I didn't even have the story in my head, which usually
Mm.
I have the story in my head, but this just started flowing and things came in and went out. But then also on a second or third draft, you also get the either, the foreshadowing, it's just like I think with this, you even said it's good to read it more than once because there's so many stories and there's so much like this happens, and you don't really realize, something happens at the beginning of a book that's later totally dealt with at the end of the book in terms of characters coming in and out. But and because
Hmm.
the timeline's sort of fluid, and because it's, all over the place, so something could have happened in the 1800s, but you don't really find out, what. Oh, and then there's a very short forward, and I often skip forwards myself, so it doesn't matter if you do. But there is an epilogue that I recommend just because I tell people what's real and what's not, and a lot of things you probably think I made up are actually completely real
I was
characters.
very surprised the first time I read that little afterward thing. I was like, no kidding. She was like a real person living in San Francisco who thought Napoleon was the hottest thing ever. That's crazy.
And you're like, no. So I do think that's worth, it's not long anyway, but it's worth it because yeah, you would think, oh, she made that up. Who thinks
Yeah,
Napoleon's the hottest thing ever for
right.
what?
Yeah, exactly. The truth is stranger than fiction in so many ways. But then we can use it in fiction to make things even stranger.
Yeah.
Um, Wonderful. Thank you. You actually already touched on my next point, which was you have future projects, obviously. You mentioned that you have another book in the works that also considers color quite carefully. I would love to hear about that.
Thank you. It was a book, as a book has a long and sordid history. It's a two series so far. Well, it's a three series are planned, two are written. The first was picked up by a small press who I worked with before, and then he actually stole the book and pretended it was co-written by him and his daughter.
What?
And I didn't even really know it. I was sort of like not, I was a little depressed at the time and not checking on things. But every time I'd say,
Oh
"What about
my
this
God.
press?" He would say, "No, no." And I thought, what the hell? And I'm like, he just was oddly non-responsive about sales. He didn't send me the figures. So I started looking and then I noticed, I mean, not on the cover, on all the things, it's like, and he, instead of E. E. King, it was E. King and then his name and his daughter's name all over the world. And and it was surprisingly difficult to get that rectified. I mean, I have to
I
say, with such a simple thing, because places had been parts of it had been out there before, so it wasn't like it wasn't a question. It was my book.
yeah.
Uh, so I finally, thanks to an editor, Fran Eisman, actually from Cosmic Roots and Eldred Shorts. Thank you, Fran. We were talking about this, and she said, "Well, in your contract it says." If you report a problem and it's not fixed within 30 days, the book reverts to you. So technically speaking, the book is yours, even if you won't withdraw it. So I started writing to all the big, distributors, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, blah, 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 with little things saying, "Hey, this is a copyright infringement. He's stealing my stuff." And then, you'd think he would give up, but no, he was like, "This is outrageous. You're defaming me. I should sue you, but you don't have any money."
Oh
So
my God.
and then he's like, "Okay, pay me $10,000. I'll give you back your book." Right? So yeah, it's just so at the time I was living in Utah, but he was in Colorado, and there's a wonderful pro bono things deal with pro bono, but it takes a while. You have to go first, you have to be checked out. And when they heard my story and saw everything, they were like, "Well, usually we only do people who are in Colorado, but your story's so egregious." And he's in Colorado, so we will take you. But then they do a brief and then they just send it to lawyers, and you have to wait till some lawyer says, "Yeah, I have the time to deal with this." And I got an amazing lawyer, Spencer Rubin. Thank you, Spencer Rubin. I'm going to name a hero after you in my book, who just stuck with me. And he even changed jobs during the whole process and kept saying,
Wow.
"We're gonna get this cleared up."
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, and the guy, I mean, he still was wanting to fight it, puff up and be like, "This is outrageous," and, you know,
Good
uh,
grief.
just amazing, right? So
Well, yeah. Wow. That's very dramatic. Do you want to give us a quick synopsis about this this storied novel?
I will.
What's it
Well,
going to be
my
about?
friends were saying, first of all, you should use that, like the story's so good that somebody stole it. But I will also give a little, not exactly a spoiler alert, but I'll tell you in
Hmm?
the first version, because I rewrote it when I got it back, and in the first version, the 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 villain, I think, was too easy to guess and too clear.
Mm.
So I added something that is not clear, but I made him and named the villain after him. And made him like a Uriah Heep character too. He's always, he's really like,
Ooh.
yeah, somebody you really immediately are disgusted by. So I'm like, okay, you know, that's something. And then,
Yeah.
yes, the story, well, it's a series. The series is called Electric Detective, and the first book is going to be called The Man Who Could Speak Electric.
Mhm.
And it's very Raymond Chandler, because I love Raymond Chandler. And I lived in LA. So it's that very kind of noir, clever language. Um,
Mhm.
and our detective, who is now a private investigator, he used to work for the police, and he's struck by lightning, which sort of supercharges the biophotons in his head and allows him to see, well, either into the past or the future or into other dimensions. We're not exactly sure at first, and I was,
Mm.
and then of course we do find out. And then the second book is called The Hollywood Wormhole, and it's based on a place I saw in Hollywood because that's where I grew up. It was an old like movie star, B-grade movie star house, and she built a huge bomb shelter under her front lawn. There was just like you see grass, but there was like this little periscope coming up from it, you know? And
Huh.
I was like, and I went in and it's all her grade B movie star stuff, and they were selling it. And I
Huh.
thought, what if it was like a portal to a world where the bomb did drop? So that was
Ooh.
my premise that I work off of. I use a lot of, there's a lot, always, I guess, even if I don't intend it, there's a lot of social commentary in my stuff. So there's social commentary on that. There's social commentary in the second book about women and how they're treated in society, which has become way more relevant than when I wrote it, which it's supposed to go the other way around, actually. That's relevant. Also, there's stuff about animals and the way we treat them, and animal shelters in the US, especially, other countries too.
Mm.
They're better here. I'm in Barcelona. But yeah, so it's always like there was some stuff that was like right on the cusp of happening when I wrote it that has now sort of happened. Uh,
Yeah.
and then there's other stuff, like I say, it's more relevant now, and I'm like, that's weird. It's supposed to be less relevant. Like Handmaid's Tale, it's not supposed to be a predictor.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to
Yep.
be like a warning lesson and that we learn from. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, we
So
have a lot to look forward to from you. That all sounds very exciting.
thank you. I also had, I'll say this real quick though. I had a little problem with the second book. It won a
Mhm.
prize for the best opening of a detective novel. And then I was all excited and they were going to fly me somewhere and all this. And I was all ready. And then they sent me a contract that was like, we will own your book forever. And basically, I looked at the stuff and they were not going to do anything with it. They were just going to maybe do a very generic Kindle that got lost out there. I don't quite get it,
Hmm.
but so I had to do that. And now I can't say I won that award because I
Oh,
didn't sign the contract. So there you go.
oh well, that doesn't mean that it's any worse. It just
Right.
means you still own it. So,
So,
well,
so
thank
thank
you very much for talking to me today, Evie. This has been a lot of fun. Um, as a reminder for everybody, the pre-order link is in the description. The actual publication date is January 21st, only 3 weeks away. So get yourself in there early. Our socials are all listed below, as well as Evie's YouTube and her Spotify if you want to listen to the book. If that's your preference, our Patreon will be linked below. Any amount really helps us a lot. We are entirely volunteer run, um, as well as liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting on this video. In fact, if you've made it this far, please drop a comment saying congratulations, Evie. I think that would be really lovely because this is a huge accomplishment. Um, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Evie, for being here today. Take
thank
care.
you. Bye. Thank you, Sophie.